Okay, helo, siwmai pawb, a chroeso. Chroeso I gas newydd, croeso i'r ICC, ond hefyd croeso I Wales Tech Week. Welcome to Wales Tech Week for today's Talent4Tech. Okay, so welcome back to the Pulse stage. Our plot twist, how we ended up in tech, is the next panel we got here. And we have Paul Evans, CEO, chairing this panel, who I'll introduce very soon. But to give you an insight, from completely different academic backgrounds and career starts, they've all found their place in the industry through unexpected routes. They're all here to share the real story on how they made the switch and why your background might actually be more relevant than you think it is. Chairing the panel, as I said, is Paul Evans, CEO of Box UK. Paul has over 20 years' experience across consultancy, transformation, and strategic stakeholder engagement. Paul, I'll hand it over to you to welcome your panelists, and I hope you all enjoy. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you.
Great, thank you, and welcome everybody. As we mentioned, we're going to talk about what we'll call a non-traditional route into tech, and we're going to pretty much focus on non-traditional being not having a computer science degree as our definition. And many industry statisticians will tell you that about a third of people working in the UK IT industry do not have a computer sciences degree. So what we've got is a great panel who I'm going to ask to introduce themselves and give them a little bit of background about how they got into an IT role before we do some questions, and I'll leave some questions save some time at the end for some questions so all get thinking. So perhaps Katherine, if we could start with yourself.
Hi, I'm Katherine. I'm a software development engineer and test working at the DVLA in Swansea. I come from a material science background, so I did material science at university, and then I was a researcher there, a postdoc researcher for many years. In February 2023, I was actually made redundant, and then I took the opportunity to sort of reevaluate my career. I'd been meaning to learn how to code for a long time, so I learned how to code as well. I was talking to a career coach and sort of exploring my options, and I was inspired by, I realized how interested I was in software development. I wanted something like creative, so I decided to pursue that. It was it was quite a hard journey, lots of hard work. But eventually, in last June, I managed to land a role at the DVLA, and I fit right in. So it was good.
Great, welcome. Luke.
Hi there. So I'm Luke, and I work in a kind of global marketing consultancy, and I build creative technologies. That could be AI, VR, it could be lots of other acronyms that I could spout off for days. And I originally was very techie when I was younger, when I was 11-ish, really into building my own computers. And I was going to do computer science, and a friend said, who'd done computer science, don't do that, it'll ruin your creativity, go do something creative and different instead. So I thought, okay, fine, good advice, I'll do classics. So I did Latin and Greek, philosophy, ancient history for a few years. And then I thought, I'll get a job that's not technical at all. I'll join a PR firm. So I did that. And then a couple of years later, I ended up going straight into a new part of the PR world, which was digital, and ended up in tech anyway. So that's my tech journey. It's unavoidable, basically. But yeah, looking forward to chatting to you all about that.
Great. Mike.
Yeah, good morning. My name's Mike. I work as a senior pen tester at PureCyber in Cardiff. I would say previous to this pen testing career, I am not technical at all. So I started my first career in the military. So I was 16 when I joined the military. I was part of the infantry. So that's pretty much far from technical that you're going to be able to get. From there, I left the military and joined private security sort of sector jobs. From then progressing into management. And then from there, moving over into cybersecurity pen testing. And that's pretty much where I am now.
And last but not least, Todd, and perhaps more importantly, who's your friend?
I'm generally accompanied. Some people have their alter egos hidden away in a drawer. Mine tend to be sitting on my lap. So how is your Greek good? Okay. So, would you like to hold my Pine Martin for a minute? Yeah.
Steady.
Right. So, technology, I understand, is from the Greek, hand and mind combined. Okay, and so he's using his hands, and my mind came up with that idea. My journey into this was very peculiar, and we can come to some of that later. But
We'll get into those questions later.
yeah, we'll come to those later. But what I do is I create creatures and special effects for film and television, and have done for decades. And as the technology changes, I've tried to incorporate that. So I had a motion capture company, and if any of you play PlayStation games, yeah, you've probably killed me quite a lot. Because I used to wear shiny balls and dance around and die as various different things multiple times. So when you pressed red or blue, it activated that. So from the Greek, hand, mind?
Yeah, kind of. Skill, technique, skill.
Great. Thank you. I'm glad to be on a panel with people who actually do know. Paulie, you're live, aren't you? Your mic. So.
I'm live. So actually, I'm going to come to Katherine first, if you can pass the mic down. So, Katherine, you mentioned you briefly mentioned your journey, and particularly, of course, pivoting around the redundancy. But obviously, that was the catalyst for changing. But can you explain a bit more about why you moved into software itself, IT, and I suppose more interestingly, did you face any challenges by not having that IT background that took you on that pivot in your career?
Um,
Do you want me to repeat the question? Or, so what made you choose software? And were there any barriers that you faced by not having, say, an IT degree or a IT apprenticeship or anything that you had to overcome?
So, I've always really loved making things. And when I was younger, I actually wanted to be a video game designer as well. So I always had an interest in tech. I just sort of went in the other direction before, but as I just sort of, I dived deep into the tech world, like trying to immerse myself in. I went to actually went to an event that was hosted at the DVLA about women in tech.
Okay.
And that was really inspiring, and sort of like it really sort of opened my eyes to what the industry was like, because I didn't really have any idea, and like I also I never thought of like the software that people use every day, like websites and stuff, is like it's interesting as video games or something, but then I realized the actual process and the building is extremely fun, and there was definitely a barrier with not having that experience. You need the experience of building things. Even personal projects can help so much.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to I did this boot camp with Code First Girls, and that gave me a lot of experience just building projects as a group and stuff, and just that was kind of a catalyst for me to like go on my own and like keep getting that experience enough to be able to demonstrate that in an interview. So you can you can teach yourself and get that if you that's a way like to overcome the lack of like.
It's interesting you mentioned women in tech. There was a women in tech event here yesterday actually, which was excellent, and they had the CTO of the BBC, a lady who was building aeroplanes and teaching women how to build aeroplanes, and a lady who was massive in biotech, and all of them considered themselves accidental technologists, as they called it. None of them came with an IT background. Fascinating. So those women in tech events are really, really great. Luke, perhaps come back to you. So a friend of you said, don't do IT, it's not creative. So I'm kind of interested to learn, perhaps if you think back to that event, what would you have liked to have known then that you now know perhaps wasn't correct advice? And what could you then share perhaps with our audience who are getting similar advice? Don't do IT, it's boring if you're not a techie.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's interesting because it wasn't bad advice in a way. What he was saying, and he did computer science at Edinburgh, and I think he was probably a little bit depressed. It's very cold up there, but he was basically saying, look, it's taken all his passion out of the technology side to do something else, and it probably wasn't bad advice because I think broadening your mind, exploring things that you're interested in outside of tech, it actually ends up being useful in technology context. And the key thing that someone could have told me, I think that would have brought that home to me, is when you enter a job in tech, the job is about people. Like most jobs are about people. They're about talking to people, understanding people. But technology, building technical solutions, if you don't understand the people who are using them or interacting with them, you might as well not be doing it, right? So the people part of the job that I was actually really interested in. So when I started in what was felt like it was a PR firm, I was like, brilliant, I'll get to speak to loads of people. And I think I probably speak to more people now as I build things. It's a more important part of the job if you build things, because you've got to be so user-focused. You've got to be so intently focused on why doing this thing matters to someone, because tech projects can be expensive and complicated and take up a lot of time. You need to make sure you're investing that energy. And in terms of the creativity, I love working in tech. And it's interesting what Katherine was saying. The like tech, when I was thinking of going into it, like I did a computer science degree, was IT, setting up networks, maybe building things in a warehouse somewhere. That's what I had in mind. But actually, most of the tech world is not that. It's working alongside people, solving business problems or solving user problems. And the creativity required to do that, to take a spark of something that might work and test it, it's like detective work, right? It's like being Sherlock Holmes a little bit. You have to really, really get your brain in the right place and figure it out. And I find it hugely creative. So I think it would have helped if someone had told me that when I was entering the market.
That's excellent, thank you. I'm going to kind of just continue with the potential stereotype that IT is boring and not interesting. So I'm actually going to come to Todd next, who's clearly not boring or not interesting at all, and talk about that more creative element, and ask you, Todd, to tell us a bit more in depth about your background, but ask perhaps more specifically, what can we do as an industry to change that perhaps stereotype? And if anybody's been down to see your stand, we'll see that it's creative, interesting, and exciting.
Okay, Pantalaimon here needs to come and join somebody. It's a bit early. We're having to listen a lot to people talking, and they can be quite dry in the way that they're talking. And I'm a nuisance, as I mentioned earlier on the stage there. So my background, I've got a few O levels. I've got no A levels. I've got no degrees thereafter, because I'm very dyslexic. My wife is an educational psychologist, and she suggests I've got quite a spicy mind. So, how I got into tech. This is the peculiar thing. And any of you who heard me talking at the beginning there will know a bit of that pathway. But I grew up in the valleys. I wasn't very good at anything. I was a nuisance. I was disruptive. I couldn't sit still. I still can't sit still. But I'm excited about solving problems. So the problems I solve very frequently are where to put the bit of string to pull the thing to make the thing work. Can you get Pantalaimon working over there? Hi, Pan, are you all right? Yeah, it seems quite comfortable. So it seems odd, but there's 3D printing, there's advanced manufacturing, there's laser cutting, there's CNC, there's CAD design involved in all the things I do, and I never really expected that when I was performing a penguin as a Muppet in Muppet Christmas Carol. Okay, that's a penguin in the nude, by the way. But so it was an entirely unexpected journey. But in the film industry and entertainment, all the tech that you see here is applied in order to help make people believe that that's a real pine marten. Does that make sense? and the jobs are everywhere and transferable. So whether you're in aerospace or in chip manufacturing, epitaxial design, DVLA, or using Greek, you know, translation, because I'm really glad that the new AirPods have a translation.
Yeah.
Yes, because then I'll be able to check whether what I'm saying is accurate directly. Tech is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. There were no phones when I grew up, as you can imagine. And now I'm doing analysis of soundscapes using machine learning, looking for biodiversity in an automated way for the film industry and for construction and all sorts of things. How the heck I got here?
Yeah. But it's interesting about focusing on those outcomes rather than the IT per se. So what you're achieving with the tech rather than the tech as a discipline itself, yeah? Mike, come to you. So military background, went into security. What skill from that, I'll call it previous life if you like, do you think helped you the most as you transitioned into a technical role?
Well, first off, I'm trying to think how I'm supposed to follow that rather eccentric spiel, and I don't have any props, unfortunately. So, security consultant and then subsection pen testing, where I sit, requires a very diverse set of skills. So there's not just the technical aspect, but there's also the people skills that are involved. There's being able to learn things fast, and then relay them to a client in a way that's understandable, possibly not towards someone not technical.
Yep.
So being able to break things down, but then also explain them at a higher level. From previous careers then, there is a great deal of skills that I've kind of pinched from all sorts of careers. So from military, I've got things like self-motivation and discipline, which has allowed me to learn the technical aspect very quickly. Attention to detail when it comes to report writing. There's no point doing a good pen test if you're then going to hand a report to a client that's unreadable and completely useless.
Yeah.
And then from the private security sector, again, building on those same sort of skills of attention to detail, report writing, but also being on that more defensive side. When it comes to things like physical engagements, you're trying to essentially break into a building. Being on that defensive side where I'm aware of the potential, how good cameras are, guard locations, all sorts of bit that help me with kind of recon.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a vast variety of skills that kind of play in together, but as far as one or two particular skills, it's too diverse to kind of break it down that sort of low.
Yeah, understood. I'm going to ask an open question to the panel now, and then I'll come to the audience in a moment or two. So a phrase that I've heard increasingly over the last 5 or so years is imposter syndrome. And I just wondered if anybody has any thoughts on whether imposter syndrome is more common for a career changer or not. So, Mike, if you go, you've got the mic,
Yeah,
and then
I'm happy with that one.
Please
So,
jump in.
Yeah, so if you don't feel imposter syndrome, possibly in your careers as well, but definitely where I am sat, then you are not pushing yourself enough and you're not doing your job correctly. Once you think you're up to speed on current vulnerabilities, or you think you've got a particular methodology nailed down, something else will come out and then you'll realize how little you actually know. But again, like I said, it's back to those skills of being able to learn things very fast, put them into the sort of the engagement, and then be able to explain them technically. Having that skill set definitely helps quite a lot.
Yep, excellent.
Yeah, I think it's worth saying as well, tech is full. It's a lovely career. Everyone should, enter it. But it is full of people who are gatekeepers, who don't want to learn new things, who would like to make sure that their knowledge is the most important thing, and they don't want people entering. And that's any career. And you've got to be able to sort of push those people aside. I mean, I encountered loads of people who said, you're not allowed to do that. You don't have a computer science degree. Which is absolute nonsense. And a lot of those people are now really struggling with AI because new ways of working mean they have to suddenly adapt. And I can see, on this panel, we've got people with brilliantly open minds in lots of different ways, right? And that is probably, like you say, the most important thing you have in tech, in my opinion.
Excellent. Does anybody else want to come in on that? Or?
What have I got in my pocket? Most of my days, I'm very happy to say, I get surprised. I'm sure that here, there may be surprises that you're encountering on a regular basis. He is watching you, by the way. It's just... the whole point is 3D printed in Wales. Same technology that is used at Weta FX for Lord of the Rings, where a friend of mine is doing some stuff on the new Gollum movie. But we were saying to people earlier, if anyone needs an eye, come to my stand, if you've got a bit of a problem. However, that as a solution is really, really important. When I was growing up in the valleys, there were a lot of war veterans, and I used to work at a home for war veterans, and they would love to have had some bits to stick on, to add on, to make work. And that world that we are now encountering of people who are living longer but with comorbidities, you really want some solutions that make them active and have lives that they can feel valuable in and have some dignity. So the sort of drive is there to do that. And what I'm discovering is the technology exists. And what I want is people to come up to me or to solve things in society that uses their inspired pathways, trying to solve a problem. Go do it. I mean, it is astonishing. For those of you who have iPhones, who has an iPhone? Yeah, you all got one? Hold it up in the air. Okay. So what you should know, probably you do. So I'm not going to take your picture, you say, but designed in California, built in China, with chips and facial recognition that come from Newport.
Yes.
Please be aware, it's right here. Get involved in it. That didn't answer your question at all, but I thought it was quite good.
It was a better answer to a better question you didn't ask, right? So,
shall I give this a... There you go, pass that over.
Are there any questions from anybody in the audience? Jamie?
I'll kick everybody off. I wondered how you stay relevant and up to date in such a rapidly changing technological environment.
Who wants to come in on that?
So you've got various cybersecurity news sites, always good to go to, things like the Hacker News, Bleeping Computer. Several Telegram channels as well do it. And then podcasts. That's usually the way of understanding the most recent threats. A lot of the news websites are the better ones because they will generally publish a blog and then give you kind of a rundown of the vulnerability, exploit, or whatever else they're putting out there. So just utilize the internet. The internet's an amazing thing. Everything's out there that you need to know, and just keep checking news sites.
There's a question over there. Paul, you got a microphone for a question over there?
Come on, Paul.
Thank you, Paul. Hello, how are you? I have a question for Katherine, the only lady on the panel. Hello, Katherine. I wondered if you could share your insight in from the point of view of being a lady, often working in a male-oriented environment, and what your thoughts are in terms of breaking through any perceived barriers.
Yeah, great question.
I mean, I used to work in an engineering department, so I'm quite used to being outnumbered. Yeah, it is. It definitely is quite male-dominated. But there's also, like I said, the boot camp I did was a charity, an organization exclusively for females to get them into tech. So I guess there's a lot of initiatives out there to encourage women into tech. So I've been able to benefit from those. But Yeah, I guess it's just a case of kind of not, not being put off by that, and sort of, yeah, just, yeah, just, pursuing your passion anyway, and yeah, just going through.
It's great.
Okay. So, tell me how you got into tech.
Hello, how are you? Katherine knows me. We're from the same organisation. Hello.
Okay.
Katherine. What I would say is, actually, I'm not a tech person. So I'm a people person. And for me, I actually think it's more about curiosity. You made the point earlier about connection, about building a network, about being brave, about not being afraid to fail, leaning on your peers, and taking the first step, taking that risk, and knowing who your collaborators are, who your mentors are, and having that openness to learning and leaning in. I actually lead some of the work that Katherine has benefited from. We have some of our team here today, and I think, from my perspective, seeing that generational investment in talent, looking at, not just the new starters, not those joining from colleges, but actually the career changers, people who are curious, who are willing to embrace change, who are not afraid of it, and who lean in. And who are agile, who can pivot. So often we look for people who have had a variety of careers, not just purist tech, because actually it's that diversity in talent, it's the diversity in opinion, in knowledge and debate that allows us then to deliver quality of service.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Very, very well said. I think there's also a position where even the tech backgrounds need to expand a bit more to recognize that tech isn't just about coding or hackathons. There's so many other diverse roles like user experience, research, design, project management. So we've really got to broaden that definition. So
and just to answer the question specifically to women, if you are somebody, as women often are, who can multitask, who can problem solve, who can bring people together, who can communicate well, who can tell a story, there is absolutely a role for you in organizations. And what we find is often women will come into what we would call the softer roles, but find a route through then to roles like software engineering or software engineering test or cybersecurity. And so there is a route through. You just have to be aware of it and find your relationships and build on those relationships.
Absolutely agree.
So I have another question, if you don't mind.
One last question, because we're nearly out of time.
William, I think you probably have lots of stories to tell on this one, but I would be really interested from the panel to know, what has been your biggest mistake and your greatest learning as a consequence?
Who wants to start?
No, I get sued.
Luke.
It's not a popular question to answer, is it? It is, well, okay, there's a soft, friendly version, which is around the people thing. A lot of mistakes that I've made have been not thinking about the eventual user, which this is a really safe answer, but it's totally true. Understanding why you're building something is 99% of the task, because otherwise you could build something you don't want. That's the soft answer. The harder answer, I'm aware this is being recorded and broadcast, is if you work in tech, you will almost certainly at some point hit one of two things that goes wrong. Thing one that goes wrong is you inadvertently expose a part of a system or some information to a wider audience than you expect to. That's the security issue. Everyone will, hopefully not, but everyone will make that mistake until they realize how important it is. And if you're clever, you'll realize how important it is right at the start of your career. You shouldn't have to make that mistake. You notice I've avoided saying whether I've made that mistake or not. The second problem, which is pretty much the same thing, is changing something you didn't realize in a production system without meaning to do it, via some mechanism, whatever. These are the two things that you will feel And obviously, I'm not talking from experience because this is being recorded and I'm perfect and I've never made this mistake. But should one have ever made these mistakes, you will feel a chasm open in your stomach, the like of which when you were little, if you broke something in your parents' house and didn't want to tell them, that's the level of horror you feel. And so my advice to anyone starting out in tech is if you don't have a computer science background, you might be missing, actually, like I was, some of the important steps. So figure out what those are, talk to people who are more senior or more experienced and understand the landscape and try and avoid making those mistakes. That's a more honest answer.
We're going to need to wrap up the panel now. I think the one things I'd just say from my personal experience is, number one, do whatever you want in college or apprenticeship or university, etc. I was told I couldn't do geography because I didn't want to be a geography teacher. And I didn't want to be a geography teacher, but I loved geography. I went and did economics instead. Didn't love economics, and somehow I've ended up here on this stage with you lovely people. The second one I'd say is everybody makes mistakes. So just own it, because everyone does it. Just don't hide it, just own it. Everybody makes mistakes. I'd just like to thank such a great panel. So if you could give them all a round of applause, and maybe they'll stay around if there's any questions later for just a minute or two. Thank you, everybody.
Lovely stuff. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you, Paul. Thank you to everyone on the panel. Hope you all enjoyed that one.